Witi Underwater was made by Te Pūrongo Productions for Te Reo Irirangi o Aotearoa, with support from Te Māngai Pāho.
Mānawa mai e te rangi i runga nei. Mānawa mai e te papa i raro nei. Mānawa mai ngā mākuru ki runga ki e nei taurā, ki runga ki e nei tau i rā. E te wāhi ngaro, uhia mai tō koutou korowai aroha, tō koutou korowai manaaki, kia tau iho ko ngā tō mai rangi ata whae ki runga ki a mātou. Hei ārahi, hei tohu i a mātou, ki te tika, ki te pono, ki te rangi Māori e. Kia tūturu e rangi, kia tūturu e papa, kia whakamau ai kia tīnā.
Tīnā, haumi e,
hui e, taiki e.
Taka ka taka taka ka taka taka ka taka ki te motoi. E ka poki te whetu, e ka poki te marama. E ka poki te ata o takura kura ka riro repi ati hai hai ya. Repi ati hai hai ya. E ara tura ke nā paranikia, te ūpoko, te ngāngara, kai tangata e.
Witi Himara is reading us part of a whakapuaki he's delivered at Takiura. It's one of those increasingly longer kōrero, e roto i te reo Māori anake, for him and his hoa akomanga as they progress through the year.
Kua tīmata ngā tāngata ki te whawhai, i tētahi motu, ki tētahi motu, i te moana nui a kiwa katoa.
We're in the RNZ studio again, rather than in the akomanga. But we'd asked him about this particular whakapuaki because we had heard that when he stood to deliver it, something unexpected happened. Something extraordinary, something very witty.
I was telling a story, and it involved Io Matua Kore, the god of all gods, Te Atua o ngā Atua katoa.
The mana was building up inside of him.
Harry, the hoa akomanga we met last episode.
And so there I was, talking about him, and then I thought, well, you know, what am I doing standing on the floor?
And so I think he just went with the flow, went with the wairua.
So I jumped onto the chair and began to act out.
And you just see the whole room like leaning forward and probably 3 or 4 people rushing to his side.
Miru, another hoa akomanga.
Io, pronouncing from above.
He's going to fall off, he's going to injure himself.
And it's like he's completely unaware of that and we were like, oh my God, Papa Witi, you see Whaesha's face.
Here's Whaesha.
It's like, ko papa, e heke.
There were screams from everybody, get down, you know, you'll fall.
I think my hands even went up, and I was right down the other end of the classroom, like, e heke, get down now.
People in our akomanga like rushed to him and like were holding the chair, trying to stabilise him, make sure he could catch him if he fell off.
But I didn't fall. I have never fallen.
He was seemed to be up there for quite a while, like half of his whakapuaki.
They didn't know you're a ninja.
They didn't.
He had a few other moves that he was doing, some sort of crane stances.
Half operatic, half just really theatrical, very theatrical.
It was very entertaining to watch, but yeah, it definitely was a bit of a worry.
Aha ka tōna tinana o tera o te waru te kau. He's 8-year-old in physical form, but his ngākau and his energy is like a 12-year-old.
Even though he's a bit of a koro, he's pretty agile, Papa Witi.
Papa Witi. It's an ingoa he's got used to this year, although it's had unexpected repercussions. Everybody at Takiura calls you Papa Witi, which is lovely. Do you like it?
Well, I'm the oldest student there. I think I must be the oldest student on record in Te Reo. And the use of Papa in the Māori sense is a courtesy title, and it's a title of respect. But I'll tell you what, I have aged more in this year than I have ever in my entire life. I never used to think of myself as being this old. I never used to think of myself as needing attention. They don't allow me to carry tables. They won't let me do things that they do. I think I've lost a lot in terms of the way that I was a year ago, because is not only just learning the reo, it is how to use it, how to talk it, how to create new sentences that you never ever thought of, how to comprehend your world in a different way. So I have become less spontaneous as a person, but that might just be an interim step.
Korau mau mahara te kai patu o te rā, waki o te pāpauri, nō reira tēnei te
Koenei te maramataka Māori e te whānau, ka pai koenei ngā tohu.
E te hapa ira, 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 ira.
Ringa ringa pakia, wai wai takahia e kino
He Māori ahau, e noho Māori ana, ki tōku ao Māori.
Uriranga, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai tātou katoa.
Ko Witi Underwater tēnei. He kōnai ipurangi, ā e rima o ngā wāhanga e matapakatia ana i te whiua o tētahi kai tūhi rongonui ki ngā wai hōhonu. And yeah, it's episode 4, the second to last one, so I've stopped saying the subtitle in te reo Pākehā. I'm Adam Dudding, wāhanga tuawhā, te wheke.
Kei ngā kiato me ngā rauawawa o ngā waka i takia mai i hoa ki rāno, ko whakakao mai ki te whakatere i tō tātou waka, ki runga i te moana o te reo kia ora. Hoki mai anō ki te kōnai ipurangi, e kia nei, ko Witi Underwater. Ko ngā kaupapa hei wānanga mā tātou i tēnei hōtaka, ko te kōhanga reo o hine te iwaiwa, me te kōhanga reo o whaasha. Tuatahi ake, kia mihia te hunga nā rātou te kaupapa o te kōhanga reo i kōkiri. Mei kore ake koutou i tū ai tā tātou kaupapa, neke atu i te whāte kautau te roa, ā, o roto i e rā whāte kautau, kua kite ara ngā hua o tā koutou i wawatatia ai, arā, ko te whāngai hia o te reo ki a tātou tamariki mokopuna, hei reira tangata whenua ai te reo ki roto ki a rātou, ā haere nei te wā. Tēnei te mihi atu ki ngā ringa manaaki, huri noa i te motu, koutou e manaaki tonu nei i te mauri o tā tātou kaupapa. O tira, kia koutou e poipoi tonu nei i a tātou tamariki mokopuna, tēnei te mihi, tēnei te mihi.
That was Te Ao Mihia Tū Mai, the podcast's mātanga reo, with a mihi addressing the pioneers of kōhanga reo. It's been a frantic year for the tauira of Takiura. Their kete of kupuhau is filling up. Their hinenaro are switching from whakaro Pākehā to whakaro Māori, and their whakapuaki are now up to 40 minutes long. So yeah, he tino ua ua. Which is what makes this feel like another world, a happy world. A world of laughter and song. Witi and the other tauira have been sent out for the week to various kōhanga reo, a chance to get out of the rumaki classroom and to see reo Māori amongst tamariki. We've come to Te Kōhanga Reo o Hine Te Iwi, which is on the campus of Waipapa Taumata Rau, Auckland University. The sound equipment we've brought along is a bit of a hit with the tamariki.
It's not working.
But of course, the main reason we're here today is to catch up with Witi.
Ka te mata?
He's brought along a couple of books to read, Puka Puka ki te Pānui, and they're both set in the ocean, Te Moana.
Kia ora, morena, tamariki mā, morena. Hai, kei te kōrero o ahau, he kōrero mo te moana,
As well as the books, he's brought along some props, anga, shells, perfect for listening to the roar of the ocean, te reo o te moana.
He aha tēnei mea. anga, kei te whakarongo ahau, ki te karanga o te moana. Ai. He aha tēnei mea, te wheke.
Te wheke, the octopus. With tamariki and mokopuna of his own, Witi is a well-practiced koro. And he and the kōhanga kids are counting the arms of te wheke.
E hia ngā ringa o te wheke. Tahi, rua, toru, wha, lima, wana, wheke, mahare, lima, wheke. He aha, tēnei mea.
And there's a picture of kahu, which is another name for paikea, riding on top of the whale. Ke runga I te tohura.
Ko kahu ki roto o te tohura.
Ke roto? Inside the tohura? That's a whole other story.
Ki runga o te tohura, ai. Aroha mai te reo I te wiwi.
We can definitely give Witi some slack here. As he just said, the picture book he's reading from is the French edition, so he's translating on the fly, I te reo wiwi. Witi has been at Hine Te Iwi this week with one of his hoa akomanga, whaia kārena.
Ko kārena tamihana hau, ko mangawara te awa, ko hapua kohe te maunga, ko waiti tōku marae, no waikato ko tōku marae, te ingo tōku marae ko waiti, pātatana ki morena whira. Ai, nā reira, no waikato a hau, noho au ki te nota, ka mohio nā whānau kei te nota au, kei whakaaro o nā hoa no te nota hau.
This is far from Kārena's first visit to a kōhanga. Years ago, her own 2-year-old daughter went to kōhanga reo.
I ngā wā o mua ka haere au ki kōhanga ki te taho tōku pēpi. Ko tiro e rua.
This week, Kārena and Witi have enjoyed seeing the tamariki thriving, knowing who they are and where they come from. Plus, the adult visitors have learnt some lessons of their own.
Mōhi o nā mokopuna nohea ia, nohea koe, ko wai au, tōku haukainga, tōku tuakiritanga, ka mōhi o nā mokopuna. Ai, pai ki te kitea, pai ki te rongo tērā, kaupapa.
Not only are they pai, but they also are really very, very good at telling you off.
Ngā tamariki.
Ngā tamariki.
Ai, ki te kōwhete, he mahi ua, he mahi ririke, ka kōwhete nā tamariki kia māua. Au, kaore te pai, tērā mahi.
My tinanaki are here.
Aye. I made the mistake. One of the boys asked me to pass him the purple block, Waiporoporo, and instead I passed him the orange block, and he went, "Kao ki te Waiporoporo, Papa Witi," you know. So that is now emblazoned in my mind. I now will remember that.
Waiporoporo.
It's all good practice, says Kārena, whether it's a kaiako correcting your hapa or the little kids.
Yeah, if pai ana te whiako kia māua ki te prakatihi tōku reo, kei te hapa ira, kei te whakatika nā kaiako, kei te awhina, kei te whakatika nā mokopuna o nā hapa.
So you enter into the children's world here, you know, and it's a world full of simple pleasures. On day number 3, the children had gotten to know me well enough to be able to invite me to the table, you know, to eat with them. Eh? So he said to me, "Oh, will you come and eat with me, Papa?" And I went, "Aye." And then he said, "Oh, kei whea te tō rau kai," you know, because I hadn't brought some kai to the table. So you can have some of mine. So it made us feel terrific.
It's hard to feel anything other than terrific, harikoa, I tēnei wāhi, a place of joy and learning. It's like we're cocooned against the world outside. Ka kite I te harikoa I rotone. Which is just as well, because not everyone is happy about what's going on out there. Ke te haere tonu ngā raru o te kāwanatanga I waho rā. Whakaata Māori staff are facing job cuts as the broadcaster's funding is squeezed. There has been an announcement that Te Ahu o Te Reo, a program to develop school teachers' Te Reo Māori proficiency, will be canned. Kua whakamoia, to save the government $30 million. But somehow, gloomy news from outside can't penetrate this kōhanga. Witi and Kārina are loving it, joining in with all the waiata and just grinning. Kua pakaru mai ngā mene mene. I said Witi had a couple of books with him. So, after the Reo Wīwī picture book edition of The Whale Rider, he moves on to something even more remarkable, a brand new story from the Kaituhi Rongonui. A children's book called
Heke te peke.
Heke te wheke.
Heke. Peke. Ko te peke te tuakana.
The story is actually something Papa Witi's created for his whakapuaki. Things get a bit chaotic when he's reading it at Hine Te Iwa Iwa. So we asked him to read the whakapuaki for us later in the studio, not just because of the better sound quality, but because there was actually a bit of a hidden meaning to it.
Oh my God, I can see that I did about 3 versions of it.
Actually, the whole story is a bit hidden somewhere within Witi's iPad.
But where's the one that I put? Right, must be somewhere else. Where is it?
But eventually,
Whakapuaki kōhanga heke, there we go.
It's found, and he sets the scene for how he delivered the whakapuaki to his hoa akomanga. You know, all the other adults taking rumaki reo.
All of my ones have been an old man sitting in front of an audience of children. So now they've come to expect that. I will sit down and I'll say, kia ora tamariki mā, ke te pē he koe, you know, and I hope that you've been looking after your mother and your father, you know, all of that sort of stuff. So I think that they like being back in their own childhood. And then what I then do is I begin my piece. And so, kina, kina, wheke.
You might recognise the waiata at the start. Sing along if you want.
Pawa, pawa, oa, 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 oa. Eka, eka, tuna, tuna, eka moana e. I tēnei pikitia ka ki te tātou ngā iwa roro a heke kei whakaaro I te rautaki o tana whawhai.
In this picture, we can see all the 9 brains of the octopus, which are for planning his fighting strategy, te rautaki mō te whawhai. And there's the hidden meaning. As Witi explained to us at the kōhanga, he's challenging the famous whakatauki. Kaua e mā te wheke, me mā te ururoa.
Don't be like the octopus, be like the shark. And I've actually never liked it.
Witi reckons the whakatauki just doesn't give the wheke the credit it deserves.
You know, its IQ is as high as humans in mathematics. It has 9 brains, ko te mama roro, and the other brains are in its arms. So that means that these can move independently without being told by the brain what to do. The octopus can change colour, of course, can camouflage itself. I te toka o te reef, the octopus can swim at 65 miles per hour.
Whereas the shark, te ururoa, or te mango, who gets all the praise in that whakatauki,
the mango can only get up to 45 miles per hour. But the main thing is that the wheke and the mango fight for different reasons. The mango fights for kai, the wheke fights for he whānau. And so it fights a different fight. So its fight is to try to encourage the shark to follow it to a different place while the whānau escapes. And so my kaupapa is that it is better for Māori to think of themselves as wheke rather than as sharks.
You could think this is just the musings of a tauira searching for something to say in a whakapuaki. But taiho, you don't have to read much of Witi's work to realise that this is something he's been doing his whole career, subverting the norm.
Would you agree this is a very Witi Hamaira kind of way to do things? Having just finished reading Native Son, you're always taking the thing that everyone says and going, does it have to be like that?
Well, it happens to be the truth of the natural world, and it was something that I thought I should do, just to widen people's understanding that the wheke fights for its whānau and its iwi, just as Māori have fought for our whānau and our iwi. That the wheke has used camouflage, just as Māori have used camouflage, has used the law against Pākehā law to be able to establish our own tino rangatiratanga. The wheke has used its intelligence so well. And so when people say you should be like the shark, why should the octopus fight like the shark? The shark fights like the shark. We fight like the octopus. And in my opinion, the best image for Māoridom is the wheke.
It sometimes feels like I'm interviewing an octopus. Whaia te wheketere, te wheke koi. The intelligent creature slipping away from the question, avoiding the self-analysis, and instead offering a decoy answer justifying his stand, which is an entirely reasonable one. Kia kaha ngā te wheke mā. Sure anō, just to prove to myself I wasn't imagining things, I went back through my notes about some of Witi's pukapuka, and kaore e kore. There are plenty of examples of Witi the subversive, pushing back against the accepted narrative. Some of that is about the choices he's made as a writer. In volume 2 of his memoirs, Native Son, he writes about having broken convention, broken tikanga, very early on because he was writing and publishing stories about Waituhi, stories of his tūranga waiwai and kāinga, without making sure he had permission in advance from the old people, the kaumātua kuia. But even away from the page, he says he was always asking awkward questions. The Smilers were a sharing whānau. Men on the clippers, women handling the fleece, kids helping out too. And in his first memoir, Māori Boy, Witi says he was reading Oliver Twist at school, which got him thinking about capitalism and injustice, and led to him having a huge argument with his Uncle Puku in the sharing shed. Why was Puku paying the women less than the men when everyone was working hard? Why were the girl cousins getting paid less than Witi and his boy cousins? And perhaps most famously, The Whale Rider is a prime example of Witi's habit of turning things upside down to see how they look. The novel is based on a pūrākau rongonui no te tairāwhiti. In the kōrero tuku iho, the legend passed down, Paikea travels to Aotearoa ki runga tuhura. The original Paikea is a man, he tāne. But in Witi's version, the Paikea role is a kōtero, a girl. And the novel is again asking an awkward question. Is it possible to stay true to traditional ideals and values while also leaving space for change and growth? Subversive, right? Later, back in the studio, Witi reads us the final section of his whakapuaki, Mō te wheke, and it helps him remember something.
I roto o taku ao, kua whawhai au I aku pakanga mā tōku rōro toa. Ko aku pukapuka e hā mene tia ana te Pākehā whaimana, e whakapū mau ana rātou I te tiriti. Ko ēnei taku taiaha me taku patu. Ki au nei, ko taku pēne he kaha tonu ki te hoari. Okea ururotea, kao, e karema, okea whekehia. Actually, that's even better than I thought. At the very end, what I'm saying, I forgot all about this, is that, the way in which I write too is like the wheke. My books hold my mana, e whakapū mau ana rātou. They're my treaty acts. Ko ēnei taku taiaha, they are my taiaha and my patu. So, for me, the pen is mightier than the sword. O kia ururotea? No. E kare mā, fight like the octopus, using 9 brains rather than 1 brain, to diversify throughout, using smoke screens or using speed, and certainly using camouflage. I had to use camouflage in the beginning because the only way in which I could get my work published was to appear as if I was writing within a Pākehā tradition. But it wasn't until I met your father and then others who then began to say to me, well, we don't want you to write like a Pākehā, we want you to write like a Māori. With that whakaaro, that indeed he is someone who subverts the norms, having now returned to him,
Witi tells us how this year at Takiura has given him the opportunity to turn old stories on their heads. Kua hurahia ia ngā kōrero tawhito.
There are some things that excite me. I've already subverted an oriori that was first written in 1840 by one of my ancestors, and it is an oriori called Pōpō. Pōpō e tangi ana tama ki te kaimana, waiho me tiki ake ki te pau. And so we were given this exercise to write something, and I thought, well, Enoka Pakaru was writing Pōpō, Pōtiki, for a young boy of Te Tairāwhiti. Well, was there any room in that for the young girl who's growing up in Te Tairāwhiti? And so I thought, well, I would write, Kōkō e tangi ana hene ki te kaimana, waiho me tiki ake mai pane tēnā ka whakaritea te Tairāwhiti no kai uru. So that is what is interesting me, not writing what everybody knows, but pushing and transcending what everybody knows and trying to create new ways of thinking.
When I first asked if we could be flies on his wall, I hadn't really thought about the extent to which this year was actually a creative opportunity for Witi. I thought of it as being, okay, Witi's going to learn te reo Māori over the year, and tika tau. But also, kao. Witi's going to write loads of interesting stuff is what's actually happened. There was an example of this which happened before our own eyes, I tōna akomanga. We were back in the classroom. Fire Shah turns to a card game.
Nō reira anei ngā kāre ko ngā kupu.
It's a game to help learn kupu hou, new words.
Āhua au e nei kupu, ko ngā kupu au. E hara te au pere te kuri, engari hea te kupu au. Ko te high frequency, ne? Ko te au, ko te high frequency, nō reira I roto ngā kura.
She hands out the kāri,
Ko ngā kete kupu.
and Witi is paired up with Mero, the hoa akomanga we heard from at the top, helping tell a story about Witi standing on the turu, the chair. So, Witi and Mero get 4 cards, each with a word on it.
Ngohe, tara aroa, o turi pāpaka.
Mero doesn't know any of the 4 words, but you're allowed to look them up. And they are nohe, soft, tāroaroa, tall, pōturi, slow, and pāpaku, shallow. The exercise Fire Shah wants them to do is write a short story incorporating these kupu hou. For a master storyteller like Witi Himara, he māma tera, easy, ka mahia e rāua, ko Mero e te mahi.
I roto I te horopaki, he āhua o tētahi tangata, he tangata pāpaku, he tangata like shallow.
A story starts to take shape around a tall woman and the ocean and her meeting someone there. Straightforward.
Tētahi rā, ka haere tētahi wahine tāroaroa.
But then, Witi, the creative, has an idea. And next, well, here's Mero to explain.
We put the sentences together, we got it into, kind of makes a little bit of sense, and then we're practicing how we might present it, and then Papa Witi just starts singing it. It just seemed like a really classic Papa Witi move, which I love. Again, without even thinking it, it's just the way that it was coming out, and it was perfect. It was beautiful. I was like, cut a few up, Papa Witi. You do that.
We wanted to ask Mero what it was like having Witi Himara as a hoa akomanga. But first, tēnā koe Mero, kōrero mai, Ko waikoe.
O tēnā korua, tēnā koe, ko miro here tōku ingoa. He uri tēnei, he mokopuna tēnei no Ngāti Maniapoto, Ngāti Porou, ko Pukenui te maunga, ko Manga o Kewa te awa, ko Tainui te waka, ko Ngāti Maniapoto te iwi, ko Ngāti Rora, ko Ngāti Apakura, Ngāti Kahu, Ngāti Unu, ko miro tēnei.
Miro wasn't raised in a reo Māori-speaking home, but there were plenty of kupu Māori spoken around her. Kupu like...
Horoi o ringa, haere atu, a hariki waho, kia ora.
And her nana, who she was close to.
Was also pretty kaha on the reo Māori, I roto I te whare, I roto I te kāinga.
When she began university, Miro also started going to kuropo, Māori night classes, with her mum.
I loved it so much that year that I decided to major in it alongside French, which is my other reo tupuna. And from there it just really blossomed, kua puawai, te reo rangatira I roto I a hau.
After university came a career in management consultancy, so the decision to take a year off to do rumaki reo was a big one, but one she hasn't regretted.
Nā reira, kei te haere o nei, I tēnei haerenga ki te wānanga takiura, he tino taonga tēnei whiako, tēnei haerenga, āhua rere kia pia, a bit different to maybe what I expected. I had really high expectations from where my reo was going to be, but what I've realised actually is you can't possibly have just the reo without everything else around it, whether that's tikanga like whai kōrero, karanga, karakia that we do every day in our hui whānau, hui karakia I te matua o te rā, but also pūrākau that we learn from our mātanga, whether that's nani kā or papawiti for that matter. Such a privilege. Nā mātou te wai Māori e ki te noho ki tōna taha I tēnei tau, nā tōna mātauranga, nā tōna pūmanawa I roto I te ao, I roto I tōna ao tuhituhi, tōna ao mai te tai rāwhiti. So much of his knowledge comes from where he's from because he did, grow up at ki ngā rekereke o ōna kuia, at the ankles of his kuia kaumātua perhaps.
Because Miro had learned French, we were interested in the rerekētanga, the differences between learning te reo wiwi me te reo Māori. Miro's connections to France start with her last name.
Are is French, but from way, way back. In fact, I think our tupuna were in England first before they came out to New Zealand.
But there are also some more recent links.
Two of my dad's first cousins married French women, and so we've got whānau over there.
And it seems there's also a really strong French connection through her grandfather, her Papa David.
He was a Francophile total, and Papa just totally instilled this deep love of French and all things French.
All the same, she says, compared to te reo Māori, learning French was somehow a slightly technical process.
It was such a structured delivery, I think because it's been taught for so many years, literally centuries. Oh my gosh, some days it really took the joy out of learning. Whereas with te reo Māori, this journey is deeply emotional. I kind of knew it was going to be an emotional journey. I didn't realise I had so many tears to cry over this.
Even once you've got a kete full of kupu and you understand the grammar used to glue them together, Miro says you still need to get to grips with the Māori love of metaphor and the layering of meanings.
With te reo Māori, it's the whakaaro. That is, for me, been the most challenging thing. So te reo Māori is a very metaphorical, very poetic reo that connects deeply to our natural world and te ao wairua. And having not been raised in te ao Māori, it's really hard because you're having to completely shift the way that you think about different concepts. You hear some of our fellow tauira are becoming incredibly adept at delivering these poetic mihi, using whakatauki, using kupu whakarite, metaphors and so on. It's kind of thinking about, okay, what is it in this person that I see that makes me think of the flight of a bird or the growth of a tree or the movement of te moana, and how can I bring the words that already exist together in whakatauki or kupu whakarite, and then how can I sew in and my own understanding of the different kupu that relate to that context.
Miro does worry that tauira who are wahine don't always get as many opportunities to develop those metaphorical skills simply because it's during whai kōrero, formal speeches, that the metaphorical language really takes flight.
I will say it's mostly our tāne because they're getting opportunities to whai kōrero, and I think if we were to have more opportunities as wahine to learn karanga, I think that would kind of start coming to us as well.
Miro isn't the first person to have made this point, and it's not just a takiura thing. The convention that says only tāne get to whai kōrero on most marae has been a source of debate and samararu in the past. We already know Witi is someone who's challenged conventions and traditions, so I raised this with him. At takiura, some of the tauira wahine would have liked to have had the same opportunities to do whai kōrero as ngā tāne. So those clashes between tradition and equality that you were looking at in Whale Rider are still going on, right?
Yes, they are. And the great thing about takiura is that they're keeping that discussion live. They're keeping it on the table.
We asked Whā Shah about it too.
Yeah, e hara tera he kaupapa hau, ia tau, ka pupu tera kaupapa. So that happens every year. Kia hau nei, I think I heard something from, might have been Pānia Papa's like, stay in your lane. Māma nohio, kia hau, it's actually not an issue to me, probably because I know, you know, he wāhi mo te wahine, he wāhi mo te tāne. And in certain things, there's no crossing over. So he tino māma, kia hau. What I try and do in my class is we have turns being on the pai, ka pai. So when my class is on the pai down during karakia, we have a time in the classroom where the wahine is able to get up and do a mihi. And that's me just trying to create opportunities to still practice mihi. We have the times after whakapuaki, everybody will get up and do a mihi to the kai whakapuaki. So that's another opportunity. Ko waia hau ki te takahi tira o ngā tikanga.
There will be time for questions of tikanga and kawa later. For now, at takiura, the end of the year is approaching and the pressure is on everyone, especially with that final 60-minute whakapuaki almost upon them. Whā Shah says, yeah, some people are freaking out.
Definitely. We have, i rote I ia akomanga, ko tērā hunga, mataku rawa.
Ko miro anō.
At this point into the year, it's really coming to a head. There's been a couple of people from our akomanga who have left, and that's been really sad. There will be personal factors playing into that. At this point in the year, I'm just saying to all my mates who are feeling a bit wanga wanga, we've got this, you know, we're so close. Just turn up. Just turn up, do the mahi, don't have to go, to rangituhaha, to, we don't have to be at that level. But kia u ki te kaupapa, stick with it, we've got it.
Haere tonu.
Ai, tika, haere tonu.
With the end so close, how is Witi handling the pressure? On the last term break of the year, i te timatanga o Oktober, Eugene and I catch up with him in Pōneke, Wellington. That's where his tamāhine and mokopuna live. We really want to hear from him during this home stretch. Check, 1, 2, 3, and that's me on this one. Before the final grind towards the whakapuaki, whakamutua.
Tahiro toriwha.
Rima ono whatuwaru.
And to be honest, when Witi arrives at the studio, he's got a koroua on holiday vibe about him I've not seen over the past few months. When you walked into the studio building, honestly, you had a lightness about you, which I think is greater than the last few times I've seen you. And it may just be a coincidence, but is this anything to do with the fact that you're at the other end of the island, the other end of Te Ika of Maui, and you've had a week and a half of not being in school? Has this refreshed you?
I think we've all needed to have these 2 weeks just to relax, to understand what we've gone through, and then to begin to build back
those parts of our waka that have been sail torn apart, the outrigger gone, to put it all back together, because we know we've only got another 3 weeks to get us over and into the calm water.
Well, you've brought us back to aquatic metaphors. This is rumaki, it's immersion, it's drowning. This is Witi Underwater. What's your swimming form right now? October 2024, 1 term to go. You're in the water.
Well, okay. So normally when you're swimming, you're doing 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. But rumaki reo has taught me that I don't have to come up for breath, that I can now breathe underwater.
Haere ake nei ki Witi Underwater. Things get political.
Ko te raru tērā ko David Seymour.
Now I know who I am and what I'm fighting for.
Tauira of Takiura make the final push.
He tata arunga, he roa araro.
That's pretty good,
And some big decisions need to be made.
Oh my God, what are you asking?
Ko Adam Darringahau, ko Maua, ko Eugene Bingham, ngā kaituhi me ngā kaiwhakaputa o tēnei kōnai ipurangi. Ko James Danzi, te kai tito, ko Au, te kai huahua oro, ko Andrew McDowell, te kai pūkaha oro, ko Te Ao Mihia Tumai, te mātanga reo, ko Pai Tāwhiti, te kai karakia, ko Iana, te Nahu Owen, te kai kōmihana Māori ki te reo irirangi o Aotearoa, ka nui te mihi ki te maungai pāho. A ko o mātu mihi nunui ki ngā rangatira, ki ngā kaiako, ki ngā tauira o te wānanga takiura o ngā kura kaupapa Māori o Aotearoa. Wai hoki ki a papa Witi I he maira.
Unuhia, unuhia. Unuhia te tapu o tēnei wānanga. Unuhia te tapu o ēnei kōrero. Unuhia te tapu o tua whakarere. Kia wātea, kia māma. Te tīnana, te wairua, te ngā kau, te whatumanawa. Kia puta ai ki te taha tika. Kia puta ai ki te taha wātea. Kia puta ai ki te whaiao, ki te ao mārama. Tau mai te mauri.
Haumie.
Hui e. Tai ki e.